and welcome to the Most Magical podcast, where we give you tips and advice to help you visit the Disney parks like a pro. We're going to help you maximize the magic by mastering the planning. And today I have a very, very special guest. If you watch any Disneyland Paris vlogs, then you will know exactly who this is. So we have Sam here from Sam for God. Hi, Sam. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. It's a lovely sunny day today. I know you've been super busy.
It
So thank you
is.
so much for taking the time out to come and talk.
Oh no, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's going to be so good. And it's the best talking about Disney to anyone. But I think today, it's going to be such an incredible podcast because you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Disneyland Paris. And today we're going to kind of focus on the tips and advice that we use when we visit the parks that kind of enhance our trip. That if maybe you've never been before or you don't go very often, you just don't know these tips. And I think sometimes it's difficult because when you go kind of frequently, you just do things automatically. So sometimes it can be hard to think about, this is how I do it. But I thought,
Yeah.
try and access our little Disney Paris brainstorm and put all the advice out there.
Yeah.
That'll
That's
be
very
so
true. That's very true.
good. That'll be perfect. So I suppose the first thing we can just talk about in general is, what are the things when you're going to Disneyland Paris that you kind of think, these are the things I want to prioritize. These are the things that I enjoy the most doing.
So there are some rides that I always try my best to get on if I can. There are some trips where I can't, but like It's a Small World for me is a must do. I know it's weird and not everyone loves it, but it's a classic Disney ride and I love the version in Disneyland Paris. And it's also a very easy one to get on because it doesn't normally get very long queues. Sometimes it does. Last trip that I was there, it was like 35 minutes. And that would be something that I would say, do not join a queue of 35 minutes for It's a Small World because you will absolutely get it shorter, like 5-10 minutes, either later in the evening or earlier on in the day. So yeah, that's one that I try to do every trip. What else? I love Big Thunder Mountain. That's a difficult one to get on, so that's one that definitely needs more planning, and I don't get to do on every trip because quite often I go there to film things, and if I'm not prioritizing a video that requires me to go on Big Thunder Mountain, then I just unfortunately I don't get to go on it. With Big Thunder Mountain, I'm sure you do it a lot doing extra magic time. I think if it's open in extra magic time, which unfortunately it's not always open. It's very random when they open it. Last time I actually did extra magic time, it wasn't open. I think it had broken down because it actually opened a little bit later than 9:30 as well. Which was a bit annoying.
That is the one difficult thing with extra magic time, isn't it? Not all the rides open, and not all the rides it's the same every day. Which is very
absolutely cool. Which is why you should check the app as soon as you get in the whilst you're walking down Main Street, forget about the beautiful castle.
Exactly that.
To your phone
exactly
to see what the times are and which rides are actually open to be prepared which direction to go by the time you get to the castle. Discoveryland I found is one that is normally open. Normally Buzz is one that I think I can almost always stand guarantee it will be open unless 100%. It's just under renovation. Because it's Fantasyland as well. Some rides are open, some rides are not. Peter Pan I've seen open normally, 90% of the time I feel like it is
100%,
and it gets very long very quickly. So personally it's not a ride that I would do in extra magic time. But also I'm not gonna lie, it's not a ride that I enjoy that much. I just don't think it's ever worth that much wait.
It is very
20 minutes max.
It's always so long, isn't it? Because like you say, even in extra magic time, sometimes it's 40 minutes and then you kind of miss the whole hour doing that ride.
And
I don't 5 rides in extra magic time. 100%.
I know, which is great. Especially when you go off season, you can definitely fit so many rides in extra magic time. In the summer or busier months or a Saturday or Sunday, even doing extra magic time, you might only be able to do 2 rides. And you should be happy with those. If one of them is Big Thunder Mountain, be very happy because you've got 100%. A big ride down. I think extra magic time is such a benefit for I think it's actually the best benefit of staying at a Disneyland Paris hotel because like you say, you can get those big rides out the way and then it makes it much easier. So I'm big win for staying at the hotels. And weirdly, if you're not a rides person, because I know not everyone is, and I like the fact that everyone can do Disney in their own way because there's so much to enjoy about Disney. You don't always have to go there for the rides. So many people that I meet in the parks tell me they literally go there only to meet characters, and they've got a book with the names of all the characters they've met. They're characters,
so incredible,
which I think is so cool. I love that. And so some people choose to use their extra magic time to, as you probably know as well, join the queue for Mickey Mouse or Princess Pavilion, which I would never do.
that
for
queue,
me, that's a waste.
yes. And especially because, like you say, like where they aren't actually open during extra magic time, like get in the queue so that you're the first people in, but you are going to be waiting that whole time.
Yeah. Although it could be, if it's a nice day, you get yourself a coffee or something and just chill until it opens, and then waiting an hour is still, with something like Princess Pavilion, will be less than you're going to end up waiting if you go any other time. And shout out to all the parents who do that for their children, because I know so many parents who get there early and use their extra magic time. Like one parent might go in the queue for Princess Pavilion while child, and the other parent go and do some rides. So shout out to those sacrificing parents that do them because they want their prince or princess, little prince or princess, to meet another princess.
Yes, and I think that's the thing. Like, I always think when it comes to meeting characters, I actually think character dining, especially in Disneyland Paris, is fantastic for that, because you're meeting so many characters at once, and they are pricey. But I think the Princess Pavilion is sometimes like over 200 minutes, which is wild. So if you know I will have like a great meal and meet characters, that would be good. It'd be interesting to actually know which one you think is best, because I've only done Auberge de Cendrillon and I absolutely loved it. Like, the food was amazing, the interactions were amazing.
Yeah, you said the vegan food was great there as well, and it looked good in your video.
It was so good, and I was so impressed. Like, with the soup, it had like some stuff in the bowl, and then he was like pouring it. It was like a big show. It was amazing. I was so impressed.
Yeah,
because of the other character dining meals of buffets, which for vegans typically aren't worth the cost, so I've not been to them. So are there
have you not done the Plaza Gardens?
No, I was supposed to go there last March with my friends. I went to Disneyland Paris with them, and we'd had this big thing, and then a few weeks before I'd gone to Disneyland Paris and went to Pim Kitchen, and then the famous
the Pim Kitchen incident which is so bad.
It was just
I think you made the right choice to not go. Like, any time, I think since your situation last year as well, anytime I go to, even before that, I've always noticed such little vegan food in all the buffets. So whenever I find one, and I might just like nonchalantly mention it in the video, I'm like, oh, there's a vegan option there, and then I kind of think back to it later, and I'm like, would I want to go to this buffet if I only had one option? Like, no. That's
so true.
You know, like,
it's sometimes not worth the cost, because you're like, oh, I'm only going to have like one or two options, and it's like, minimum €55 or something like that.
But it's a lot easier for vegetarians. Even sometimes for there's been some buffets where even I've looked for like a vegetarian person from a vegetarian standpoint, and I'm like, still don't think it's worth it, even for a veggie.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think that's something that's really great, because like I say, in your videos you do point these things out, and I think it's great that even though you're not vegetarian or vegan, you do kind of keep that in mind, which is so helpful when watching. But are there any character dining meals?
It does help that I have a lot of friends who are vegetarian.
Yes, exactly. You're like, I know that person would like that.
I'm like used to them, even just out and about.
Yes, exactly
London, that. Them, although it's so easy in London compared to Disneyland Paris, as we talked before, like it's so much easier to find vegan food. And I've even been to vegan restaurants with friends here, and I've enjoyed it.
Yes, and I think that's the thing. It's so easy now in the UK, wherever you are, to eat. You're so spoiled that you forget in other countries it's not the same, and then you're like, even in Disney World, like in Disney World itself, or even Universal, there are loads of vegan options. But if you were in Orlando itself, unless you go to a vegan restaurant, there's hardly no options. So it's really interesting.
That's interesting, yeah.
So yes. But are there any character dining meals that you really enjoy, that you think, if you're going to book one, this is the one to go to?
So bizarrely, these days in Disneyland Paris, really, if you're not into your princesses, the only character dining is Plaza Gardens. And as much as I enjoy a princess meet from time to time, I am extremely awkward with them. So anytime I've gone to a princess character meet, or, if I've met a princess in the parks, whilst I enjoy it and it's cute and I look at their outfits and I'm like, oh my God, you're so beautiful, because they are. There's always a level of stress that honestly I have in my heart that I don't enjoy. So I never can fully relax. Whereas I feel like I can definitely relax more with the fur characters. I just have more fun with them.
Yes, so many people, I think.
Do you feel the same?
I actually think I like face characters more, because I think I have like a psychotic level. I go in with a backstory. I'm like a method actor when it comes to characters. So I'll think like, okay, something from their film or a character they know or something like that, and then I'll start a conversation. Luckily, the good thing is you don't have to be that level of psychotic. Like, they will lead the conversation.
No, it's good. But that's the best way.
Yes.
I try to do that, but then I fail and I may say something completely embarrassing, and then suddenly I'm like out of the magic and I'm like, oh my God, this person's going to judge me.
No, it's so that can so easily happen.
Yeah. Whereas if it's a third character, I don't need to worry worry about what's happening,
yes,
I can pretend they're not judging me. It's easier
that's
to pretend
so true.
without giving away the magic.
100%. I'm always amazed at how well they are able to convey a conversation with just body language. It's like mind-blowing. It's incredible.
No, it is awesome.
So
I just find it easier with them. I've had way too many embarrassing and awkward moments with princesses. Like, I can't. If somebody asks me, "Have you had a great moment with a princess?" I can only name embarrassing ones. I can't like tell you, "Wow, that was an amazing." Whereas with like fur characters, I can be like, "Yeah, I had this amazing memory with Woody, and this is what we did, and this is what we did with Mickey." But with princesses, no. I always like give myself a pat in the back when I meet them and everything goes well. You don't embarrass yourself. We move on. Another day without a princess thinking you're weird.
I love that. And I do think, like you say, I remember one time, and I didn't kind of get embarrassed, but I was in Disney World, and we went to 100 Park Fair when it used to be Cinderella, Prince Charming, all of those characters. And I had met Gaston earlier the day in the park. And when I met Prince Charming, I said to him, "Oh, my parents are trying to marry me off, so they made me meet Gaston earlier. Now I've got to meet you."
Love that.
And he went, "Oh, you should hang out over there with the ugly sisters." And I was like, and it was one of those things where like, I'm just like, not so charming. And I was like, this is when it goes wrong.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's one of those things that I think that, like, he probably afterwards thought, "Oh no, that's not how I wanted it to come." Maybe he didn't. But I actually thought it was quite funny. But there's always that chance. There's always that chance it could go wrong.
Things could go wrong, exactly. It's funny though, when we talk face characters, obviously I mainly think princesses, but there are some like villains, and like the stepsisters can be very fun, although I still stress when I meet them, but because they do most of the talking, I let them do it. Princesses are the worst. I love princesses, but they are the worst. Because when you're like, "Aurora, what are you going to talk to her about?" "Oh, hello, how are you doing?" This is going to be her, and you're going to be like, "Hi, Aurora," and she's like, and then I just don't know what else to say. I'm like, "Have you had a nice sleep?"
Exactly, that's it, isn't it? What can you do? Last time I think I said to her, I was like, "I don't know if you're aware, but this morning I did go underneath the castle and there was a dragon. Just you might need to sort that situation out."
But how did you respond?
She was just like, like you say, it is awkward because you're like, "Oh, okay, we're not going anywhere with that."
Because they're just like, like that's kind of it. They can't. Most of them. There are some that are a bit more fun, like Mirabelle, if she counts as a princess. I guess she doesn't. But like the more modern ones, or Merida, like you can do more with them. It's less awkward. The ones that are meant to be very proper, I'm just like, no. I can't. True, when we're not clearly, you're much more superior to me, and we just can't do this.
It's the worst. The one thing I was so impressed with though is that when I was waiting to meet them, every single one of them could speak English, French, and Spanish. And I thought that was so incredibly impressive.
That's amazing.
Because you're like,
that is amazing.
Every table, they just went up to any table and they could speak to anyone. And I was like, that's so impressive. That. And I think that is something people kind of worry about if they go to Disneyland Paris. Like, will I need to be able to speak French? Will I understand what's going on? But they're so amazing in the parks with the cast members all speaking English, but also like the shows, the integration between the French and English is amazing.
One thing I find cool as well, for instance, if you ever meet two face characters together, so like Mary and Bert are two regular ones that you see, almost always one of them will be French, one will be English, or like English native speaking, meaning that based on how, if you want to speak French to them, one of them will take the lead and the other will kind of be in the background, whoever has the stronger language, which is very cool. It's a very clever way of dealing with, it's difficult. I actually admire Disneyland Paris and how they handle things, because it's Europe is very multilingual. It's not just one language. It's they have it a lot easier in the US, and even like in Japan it's easier because the majority of their visitors will be Japanese or Japanese speaking, so they don't really have to worry about Spanish or Italian or so many other languages, whereas they really have found a way to make it work, and sometimes it doesn't work. I'll be honest, I know that sometimes it doesn't. I've heard from some French bloggers that we love, because a lot of French people, their English isn't very good, and a lot of French bloggers that I do watch barely speak any English. So sometimes they've gone to character meets, and you can tell in their videos that whoever's been there, their French isn't great. And so they've kind of mentioned, like, we feel a bit sad that we paid so much money and we couldn't have that interaction at all. They didn't even understand us. So it's sometimes
Yeah.
It doesn't always work, but for the most part, they do have it right, and it's difficult. So I don't blame them if sometimes they can't have people that speak both languages phenomenally.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? It's
language.
so incredible that to be able to work there, essentially, you need to know at least 2 languages. It's really remarkable. And I think what's interesting, what you were saying about with 2 characters, that works so well. And I've always found it amazing, like places like Avengers Campus where the characters are walking around. And I'm assuming they can kind of hope that you're talking and then they can know which language to respond to you. Because that's always amazing that they just suddenly are like, and you're like, oh, I'm speaking English. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I remember one time, me and my friend.
I could never do that.
Yes, I don't know how they do it. It's incredible.
The level of like unpredictability as well, not knowing who's gonna come to you, what language they're gonna speak to you.
1,000,000%. Like being able to improvise, especially like because on the one hand, I think it's really fun when I turn up with my full backstory. But then I'm also like, is that stressful actually for them? Because they're like, I've got to think on my toes, or is it fun that they can kind of play? And I'm like, maybe I should just like chill out.
No, I think your backstories are fun, and I think probably for the most part they do enjoy it, unless it's like in a language that they don't understand. But from the moment you see them, you probably gather if they speak your language or not, and then you can go with that. I think they, from my experience and from what I've heard from people that do these things, sometimes they love it. They prefer that than just a photo.
Yeah, no, it must be fun, especially because I'm assuming a lot of them have like an acting background, so they're probably kind of used to, and that's what I'm telling myself, that's what I'm hoping.
And so much of their day-to-day meet and greets will be with children that literally just get a photo, and so it can become repetitive for them, so it can be a little bit different for them if you end up going with your amazing backstory and have a full-on conversation with them.
I actually had a tip from someone that had kids, and this is something that never crossed my mind as I don't have kids, but they were saying if your kids have never met characters before, sometimes character dining could be a good way to introduce them, because where it's like a dining setting and they come up to you, there's like less pressure, and also if they don't like it, you can be like, oh, okay. Whereas like if you queue for I know my friend, she queued for like an hour and a half to meet Mickey. It was her and her husband and 2 kids. When they got to the front, the baby was asleep, the toddler screamed, was terrified, and then in the end it was just her and her husband with Mickey, no kids. I was like, oh no. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's quite a good tip.
Yeah. I mean, at least they got a photo.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be like,
that's a good. I can see that. Yeah.
Yes.
I can see that being a fantastic tip. Yeah, absolutely. Because you can, the kids can see them, the characters, from a distance, and just kind of see how they feel. Maybe get used to them before the character comes to them. So absolutely, wow, what a great tip.
Yeah, because you kind of forget. I don't remember being a kid. I don't think I've ever been scared of the characters, but I'm assuming they're obviously that are just like, what is this?
Yeah, no, I was never either. My brother and I loved them as a child as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there are definitely some. I see them sometimes in queues, and the worst thing is when the parent forces them to meet them when they clearly don't want to.
Yeah, and they're just like, I don't like this.
I think just you have to just go and get the photo without the child. It's okay.
Yes.
And I
think
at
another
least you
option,
can talk about it in the future.
100%. Like if you don't want to pay for character dining, because it is pricey, especially if you're like a family or a group.
It is.
Then maybe like one of the parades where they can kind of see the characters and interact with them, and then you haven't queued for ages, and then they're like, absolutely not.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
It's so true. And I think something that Disneyland Paris do amazingly are like their shows and the parades. And I think
those are good ways.
Yes. And I think this is the thing. Like I think a lot of people will always do the parades because they're like the iconic Disney thing, but I think sometimes because you want to get the full experience of all the rides and stuff, it's easy to skip over the shows. But I actually think out of every Disney park I've been to, the shows at Disneyland Paris are the best, and they're absolutely
I agree with you. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And they've got so many, like a variety of them as well. So many shows. Walt Disney Studios Park now currently has 5 different shows at the same time. And
I love that they're
as well as obviously a bunch of rides
as well. Yes.
Yeah. So you got something for everyone. And yet the majority of them will probably appeal to kids, which is great because at the end of the day, you also want to make sure that the children are happy there. And I think, adults, we might have more sophisticated opinions on things, and we might be like, oh, this show is not the best or this. But as long as the kids are happy and seeing the Disney magic and all these, experiencing it in all the shows, then they've done a good job, I think, which, that you can.
100%. I mean, I cry in every single show. It's absolutely out of control. I went and saw Together for the first time during my last trip.
It's such a good show, isn't it?
Oh my god! And it's one of those shows that you can't film or take photographs in, so it's nice that it's kind of a surprise. And I like that. Blown away. And what was good about it though, as well, is the lady next to me cried the whole time, so I didn't feel as bad. It's like,
Oh, I
this
love
is so
that.
good.
That
Like,
is amazing when you're like amongst
yes,
other people that, you know, feel
yes,
it. That's
it's
so
so
cool.
true. But like you said, I think that's what something Disney do really well is they make the shows entertaining for adults and children. And again, that balance
Yeah.
of English and French, so you can still follow along the storyline seamlessly.
For sure. Have you seen Dream Factory?
I am obsessed, and I'm too old for Disney Junior. I didn't know any of
Yeah,
these
no, same.
characters, but I love it so much. It's like one
It's
of
so
my favorite
fun. I
shows.
think it might be my favorite show in the studios, even though I love like it's just fun.
Yes, and
The
I
music, the
really,
songs, and
yes, the uplifting nature of it and the high kind of that message of follow your dreams. I think that's one of the
yeah,
reasons I
yeah.
always say that I think Disney is more impactful on adults than kids because but people get really bogged down with like work and bills and what's going on in the world, and
Absolutely,
you
yeah.
go to Disney and it's so optimistic and joyful, but also there's that massive message everywhere of follow your
Yeah,
dreams, anything's
that yeah,
possible. And I think adults need
that
reminders
is
of
so true.
that. And Dream Factory is the
Yeah,
place where they're like literally the whole story is about that, and it's amazing.
yeah.
It's
No,
so
that's such a
good.
good point. You're right. I agree with it. Like when I think back to myself when I was a child, I loved
Yeah.
Disney because it was fun and cute and yay, Mickey's there and wow, I love Big Thunder Mountain. But
Yep.
now I have like a whole other reason to like it. You know, it's because as you said, you kind of understand what the message is and the magic and what they're trying to do a lot more than when you're just a child and going for the fun only.
100%
Not
that.
saying we can't have fun when you're an adult, but yeah.
Exactly. And I was the same. Like when I was a kid, I was entirely focused on the rides. Like didn't care about anything else. I was just
Yeah.
like ride, 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 ride. Whereas now,
Mhm.
like you say, you could go and not go on one single ride and have an amazing time.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I think
remember
they
the
do it
first
so
time I did
well.
that, and
Yeah.
it was like in 2016 or 15, and we went literally, my friend and I went just for a day trip. It was the
Yeah.
first time we did just a day trip, which somehow was possible. I think apparently a lot of people do them from all over Europe though,
Yeah.
but from London at the time it was possible. We got like the 5 o'clock Eurostar AM, that is
Amazing.
extremely early, and then we'd get the last one back from Paris at 10 p.m. or 9:30 p.m.
Yep.
And I remember we went for the Christmas season. It was our first time or second time going for the Christmas season, and we just honestly spent the whole day on Main Street. We didn't even go into any of the lands because they had so many of the Christmas shows. They had like a separate parade at the time. There was so much going on Main Street that like suddenly it was time to go. And my friend Rebecca was like, "Oh, can you believe we spent the whole day just on Main Street USA?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it was snowing, fake snow, you know, magic snow."
Yes,
So it was still a really
exactly.
fun time without even
That's
going to any
so
of the lands.
good. Yeah, and it's amazing. Like to go for a day trip and like have a little dip into the magic at Christmas is so cool.
It feels so like surreal when you do that. I've
Yes.
only done it maybe like 5 or 6 times. Obviously, yesterday I did it at the time of filming. Yesterday, I did one for the first time in ages. It just feels surreal. You come back and you're like,
Yes.
"What happened?" It
No,
feels
it's
like a dream. Like
wild.
where I'm back
Yes.
in my at home. Like I was somewhere else. Like did it
Yeah.
even happen?
Yeah,
Was I
it's so
dreaming?
weird, isn't it? Because you wake up at home and then you go to bed at home, but you're
Yeah,
like, I was in Disney
yeah.
this morning. Like, it's so
Yeah.
weird.
Whilst I was at Disney yesterday, I didn't realize that I was coming back home, and then I came and I was like, oh, like because it's just not what's the norm. Normally, you do
Yes.
end up staying at least one night,
Yeah.
or at least in Paris,
Yes,
somewhere
exactly.
close,
You're just like
closer.
a whirlwind trip. But
But
whilst
it's
we're
nice that
talking
you
about
can do that from
yes,
Europe. Yeah,
exactly, and that we live close enough to do that, which is fantastic.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like, whilst we are on the topic of shows, you obviously can't give anything away, but you saw the new Alice show. Is it definitely something people should go and watch?
I think it's really fun. It is
Yeah,
different. It's extremely different to I think almost anything Disneyland Paris
yeah,
has done before. But at the same time, it's what we have come to expect from Disneyland Paris, which is shows that are sometimes a little bit more out there and unique than what you would see in the US parks. Like this new Alice show would never have gotten the approval to be performed in Disney World, in my opinion. And
yeah,
I like that they do more different things in Paris because
yeah.
it's a fun show. I was there with it's a big arena as well. Because did you ever see the Motor Action show,
Yes,
the stunt
yes, I
show?
loved
So it's a
it.
huge space.
Yes,
Yeah, same. So there's a lot of people that were there and could, it's nice that they have the show because capacity, and it's nice, especially with all the walls up in Disney
yeah,
Studios, they need a space for more people to be seeing something. And kids loved it. I think
yes,
adults were a bit more, but some adults around me really enjoyed it. Some were like,
right,
whereas the
yes,
majority of the kids that were watching it loved it. They were dancing to the songs. The Queen of Hearts has a really fun song that I've actually been, listening on repeat since yesterday.
love that.
So it's a fun, unique show. Only until September, but
Yeah,
more than likely it's coming back next year and probably for another few years every summer. And the
yeah,
only reason it's on the summer is because of the temperature, because it's an open air theater, so they
yeah,
can't have it any other time. Because
yes,
even yesterday, I saw some children who were like a little bit cold. I
yes,
wasn't, but I
yeah,
could tell some
yes,
people were quite cold even yesterday in
yes.
May.
And I think that's something that's worth mentioning is that when you visit Disneyland Paris, not everything is year round. So like a lot of the shows will have like maybe a month or two off. Like not all at the same time, but it could be that
No,
maybe you'll go and one show isn't working, or
for
at the
sure.
moment you obviously can't have Avengers Power in the Night because of the construction. So
Yeah.
not everything might be available.
Definitely. Yeah, be prepared for not everything, especially the shows. That's a good point. Like the shows, because people tend to check the rides. I think people, not everyone
Yeah,
does, but some people have now learned if they really want to go on a ride, let's go and check on the website to see if
yeah,
it's going to be under construction or not when we go, or under renovation.
yeah,
But yeah, with the shows as well, especially in Disneyland Paris where they have so many shows, even if they're not seasonal, at least the cast will still need a bit of a break. So they might have a couple of weeks off when there's a cast change, or they have their holidays and then come back, so that in those couple of weeks the show will not be happening. I actually had somebody recently ask me about what's this show, was it Dream Factory, Mickey the Mission, I can't remember, one of the shows in
yeah.
the studios, and they were looking forward to seeing it, and they were like, oh, I can't see it on the app. It was Together, because Together's I think on a little hiatus at the moment.
Yes,
And I felt really bad telling them. I was like, I think it's on a hiatus until mid June, so
yes.
you're just gonna miss it.
Yeah, it's such a
But
shame.
the thing is as well, yeah, don't. It can be a shame, but also don't. I think the best tip would always be to not put all your eggs in one basket.
Yes,
Is that even a
that's
saying?
so
Like,
true.
don't
Yes.
worry too much. Yeah, don't say Disneyland Paris is only going to be amazing only if I do this thing.
Yeah.
Have at least 5 or 6 things that are like your goals, and as long as you get to do a couple of them, be happy, and then you'll get to do
Yes.
so many other things that you didn't even expect to do. So I think
Yeah.
that's the best way, because otherwise it can be, you just never know. It's unpredictable. It's a theme park. Rides could go
100%.
down. The weather could be unpredictable, meaning some things might have to, finish
Yeah.
early. Like, you just don't know.
100%. I think that's such a good tip because, like you say, for going for one specific thing and then for whatever reason it's shut, it's a nightmare. But if you have multiple things in mind, you know you're going to be able to do them, which is always so great. And
Yeah.
I think what's great is where they're small in size, you can fit so much into your trip. So you're going to be able to have a mixture of everything. You're going to be able to have like rides, great dining,
Yeah.
shows, parade, like everything, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. But
Yeah.
while we're
This
talking
is the
about
good thing about
dining,
Disneyland Paris.
yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think the small size is so nice because it's so easy to walk around. You can hop between places, like it's such a dream. And like
And it's
even
still
within
more
the parks,
manageable than
yeah,
Disneyland California. Because Disneyland California is
yeah,
small, but whoa, the amount of things they've got there. You
yes,
know,
it's
you
so
might think because it's
true.
small, it's like, yeah, they've packed in way more there than Disneyland Paris. So Disneyland Paris definitely is more relaxed than even
Yes.
California.
And I think that's what's really nice is actually because it's so relaxed and easy to do so,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to do tons and tons of planning. Whereas if you go somewhere like Disney World,
Yeah.
you do need to kind of at least have, I
Oh, for
always say,
sure.
like, don't plan it minute by minute because that you'll be having the worst trip ever. But it's good to
I
have
would
an
hate it. Yeah,
overview of like, I would
for
like to do
sure.
this, and then like a strategy of maybe for
Yeah.
opening we'll go for this. Whereas Disneyland Paris,
Yeah,
you don't need
you
to do
you
that,
have
which is
to.
good.
Yeah, in Disney World you have to, because it takes like an hour and a bit, 2 hours sometimes to get from one park to the other. I'm
Yes,
like,
so
it
true.
takes me an hour and a bit to get from here to Paris
Yes, it's so true, isn't
from
it? It's
London.
wild.
It's just, yeah, and I think I have a friend who's going to Disney World for the first time this summer, and I'm preparing him for it. And he's like, I was telling him like sometimes it could take an hour between a hotel and a park. It could take more than an hour. Be prepared. He's so stressed about it. Bless him. He's stressed
Yes,
about the
yes,
buses. I'm like,
yes.
just as long as you know that you'll be on the bus for like an hour some days,
Yeah,
you should not be stressed. But just because on my first visit, I was like, what is this? I don't even used to Disneyland Paris, as I'd never been to Disney World as a child. So
yeah,
going from Disneyland Paris for the first time to Disney World, I was like, whoa, this is like
yes.
something else. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that is
without
so
planning,
true.
you may not be able to get a lot of things done.
Yeah,
You still have a good time, but
yes,
you probably miss out on so much that you don't need to
yes,
miss out on if you just
a
have a little
million
bit of
percent.
planning.
Well, that's actually why I started Most Magical Guides, because when I would go to Disney World, I'd meet people who just kind of turned up
Mm-hmm.
and they were having a good time, but they were like, oh, we were in this queue for 3 hours and none of the restaurants that we want, we could get reservations for. And I was like, oh my God. And it's that thing of even if you have a little bit of knowledge, you're going to get
Yeah,
such a better experience. So I was like, okay, I'm
yeah,
going to start giving the tips. Because yeah, like you said, and
yeah.
also now, like you say, people that are visiting where it's like, okay, Genie Plus, and I've got to get a virtual queue and I've got to book my dining. It's so many
I
things to
know,
plan. So
I know.
now it's
I
nice to
feel
pass that
it's
on to
hard.
people.
Yeah,
And yeah,
Disney World is like, I don't know. It's I was gonna say it's like some kind of a study thing, like something you should like study at university. Truly, like the amount of things that, and I was lucky the first time I went, I had a friend who had been before, so she did most of the planning, and I just kind of went along for the ride. Obviously, when you go once and kind of get the gist of things and watch vlogs or listen to podcasts, then you will understand it more. But not every family is going to do that, and I understand why they wouldn't, because maybe it's just the one trip they're doing, but if they want to have it in the best way possible, as you said, you kind of need to do a little bit of research and planning beforehand.
It's so true. And like the good thing, like you say, Disneyland Paris is much closer, much more affordable, and there's far less planning. Like you might want to plan stuff like which restaurants you want to dine in.
Yeah.
Particularly because the table service restaurants, the reservations will go quite quickly. So if you know in advance, like, oh, we really want to eat here, then you know, okay, let's do that and book that. I did have some, I went once with my cousin and her husband, and it was just a coincidence. I was on my own, and I met up with her a few weeks before my trip, and she was like, oh my God, we're there at the exact same time. And I was like, perfect.
Oh, fun.
So we ended up meeting up, but they'd bought the meal plan, but because they didn't know to book in advance, they hadn't. So then by the time I was like, oh no, you need to book, they were all sold out, and then they couldn't even get walk-ups, so they just couldn't use their meal plan.
See, that's the worst thing, especially if you've already paid for a meal plan as well, and then you can't get reservations, and oh no.
So I'm always like, if you're going to get the meal plan, always think, like, because the great thing is Disneyland Paris website has all of the menus on, and there's not tons and tons of restaurants. So like I used to have a list of every single vegan option in every single restaurant in Disney World. And there's 400 restaurants. So let me tell you, when I was doing that research and keep updating it would take ages. But in Disneyland Paris, because it's a much more manageable amount, it's so easy to check the restaurants in advance and find out this is the menu we like, that's what we're going to book.
For sure.
Are there any restaurants that you really recommend that you're like, this is my favourites?
I'm going to say Rosalie, and I know you've not tried it yet, and I wouldn't probably recommend it to a vegan. But it's the most recent restaurant in Disneyland Paris, one of the most recent ones just before Disneyland Hotel reopened. And the food there is phenomenal. The setting is beautiful, you know, by Lake Disney. You can see the Panorama Magic balloon going up, and I love it. I've never had a bad meal there, and I've tried something new every single time, and I've been there a bunch of times. And the good thing is it's quite big as well, so you actually don't. Whilst it's good to get a reservation, you more than likely should be able to get in even if you don't have one, unless you're there in a very busy time, more than likely, because they have an upstairs area as well. But so that's a good like backup if you can't get that, because obviously Cher Ami is probably the most popular restaurant in Disneyland Paris. Rightly so, perhaps, because yes, the theming there is phenomenal and everyone wants to experience it, mainly just for the actual theming, because the food is good. I've almost always enjoyed my meals there. In fact, I've always enjoyed them. I've never had a bad meal there, but it's like I don't sit in my house and think about it. Like I don't think, wow, that was the most amazing food I've ever had. So the food is fine. It's all right. It's good. I'd say it's good. But the setting is amazing, and I know that it's so popular. Like people coming from the US, that's the main restaurant they want to go to. You know, people in Europe, that's the main restaurant they want to go to, and it's just like so popular. Everyone's heard of it. And it's so
one of the
cute
best
when you go to
restaurants I've ever been to in a Disney park. It's so good.
Oh no,
and the whole storyline of your like shrunk down to size of a rat is so fun.
It's so cute. The only thing I wish about Jeremy is something like I would go on.
Look, I was going to say, because obviously Cher Ami also does French cuisine, would you say Rosalie's food is better?
Oh, for sure. No offense to Cher Ami, but absolutely. And also Cher Ami's, what I was going to say is that Cher Ami's menu is limited. It's a beast-course, so I understand like beast-course generally are meant to have, like, it's in the name, like the thing is they're meant to have slightly shorter, smaller menus, and Rosalie's menu is vast. They do so many things, so many starters, so I think because of that they have a lot more to play with as well. Cher Ami is mainly steak. I think they have a chicken option, maybe one fish, and what do they actually do there for vegans?
They had the main was kind of like a stew that had vegan meatballs, which was good, and the starter was like a salad. The only thing they didn't have was just a dessert. So if you did want the 3-course option, you can't, but you can do the 2 courses.
Okay, that's sad. Disneyland Paris really need to get on, like, as you said, desserts especially. I mean, they're getting better with like main courses and food and quick services, but I don't know, like, what are some good, sorry to like, I know I don't want to ramble too much. I don't want to stay on topic. What are some like good vegan desserts? Like, in your daily life that you would say they could do maybe in
Ooh.
Disneyland Paris?
I think what's interesting is a lot of the desserts that they have at the moment tend to
Mm.
be more fruit based, and I don't mind
Yeah.
it because sometimes it's a lighter end to the meal. But I know a lot of people are
Hmm.
more like, oh, can we have not like a dessert? So like someone,
Yeah, like a cake that's
yeah,
vegan, you know. I've had
yes,
them before. Do you know,
exactly.
I actually prefer vegan cakes to regular cakes.
Oh,
I have a friend
interesting.
who's vegan, and she sometimes offers me, like, if she's having some cake, she might give some to me.
Yeah,
And I just find them more moist. And I don't know
yes,
why.
that's
I
so
don't bake, so I
interesting.
don't know
Yes,
what makes them more moist and less dry.
yeah.
Maybe using dairy products sometimes does dry out. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
But
have
I do
no
enjoy them a lot.
idea about baking, like you say.
Yeah.
But
No, I'm
even
not a
something
baker.
like a creme brulee or something, if they could do that, because then you'd feel like I'm getting a very French
Ah,
dessert,
yeah, yeah.
but like a vegan version would be amazing.
Did you find it was were the desserts? I'm sure they will be better, but how better were they in Disney World or California?
Yes,
Just out of my
I,
curiosity.
they tended to be more
Mm.
like actual desserts, which was good.
Hmm.
And like, I still
Good.
think their desserts could be better, but I think it's something
Okay.
that's still developing. It's like interestingly, I did a podcast with a channel called Princess and the Bear, and Princess is vegan and Bear
Nice.
isn't vegan, and they review all of the
Oh,
restaurants
okay.
in Disney World. And
Cool.
it's really actually handy because you get both of their perspectives, which is really nice.
Hmm. Hmm.
But and they were
Yeah, yeah.
saying what's great in Disney World is the chefs are so excited to do things that are different. So if you have any allergies or dietary
Hmm.
requests, they will go out of their way and make stuff for you. And I've
That's
really
so
found
nice.
that. Like I remember I went to Boma once and I had the
Yeah.
breakfast, and it's a
Yeah.
buffet. So, and what
Hmm.
I love about Disney World is their buffet. They're like lettuce, put a vegan sign on it. Everything they put a vegan sign on, so you can't
That's
be tripped
great.
up.
Yeah.
But there was
It's
so
good
many
because, you know,
options. Yes,
yeah,
there was so much on the
takes the stress
buffet.
away as well.
Yeah, because you're not worrying. Because
Yeah.
there's always that stress of like, this should be vegan, but is it cooked in butter
Mm.
or something?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I
Hmm.
went back and I had all my buffet and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I said to the server beforehand, oh, I'm vegan. And she was like, okay, no, it's fine. And then she came
Hmm.
out with this massive tray with like 4 or 5 dishes and sat it down in front of me. And she was like, oh, the
Oh my
chef's made this for you.
God.
And I was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh. And
that's
it was amazing.
amazing.
So, like, they really do go above and
That's
beyond.
Disney, man. That's like the
Yes.
Disney customer service. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
and it's
so
so great
cool.
because you feel so included, which is amazing. And
Yeah,
like,
for
but they were saying
sure.
the
That's
chefs there
nice.
really love that because they kind of get to be creative
Hmm.
and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And
it's
whereas I
something
think
different
in
for them as well than the normal. Yeah.
yes, and I think in Disneyland Paris, I think a lot of the food is actually cooked off and then brought in,
Hmm.
so there's not as
Hmm.
much space for the chefs to do that because a lot of it,
Flexibility with that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So I think that's kind of where sometimes the difficulty can be. And I actually think now, I think that's why the Pimp Kitchen incident happened because I think like because afterwards I was like, how can a chef not know what's in the food? But I'm like, actually, if they're not
Right, right.
chefs and they're actually cooks and they aren't told what's in
Mm,
it, they don't know
mm,
per se.
right.
Um,
Yeah, the
I would
chefs wouldn't
say,
actually be there on site. Yeah,
yes, exactly. So I would
in
say if
most
you do
cases.
have any
Hmm.
dietary requirements, always check the allergens
Hmm.
on you, and then that will give you the correct
Yeah,
information because it comes directly from
yeah,
whoever's making it, which is so handy.
for
And I've learned
sure,
my lesson, so I will
for sure.
always do that now with buffets at least.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
but yeah, I
Oh
think there's
God,
actually a
like
lot of
I'm
great.
really, yeah.
Sorry. Oh,
Go on,
I'm
no, you
sorry.
go.
But yeah, I was going to say, I actually think there's
We
quite
love
a lot
chatting.
of,
This is the great
yeah,
thing about,
this is
yeah.
the thing. It's so easy just to chat because it's like,
We
we
get
love Disneyland
excited.
Paris. Yes,
Go
exactly.
on.
But I actually think there's quite a lot of good quick service options. So if you don't like the idea of taking time out of your day for a sit down meal, or there's just no reservations,
Hmm.
there is still loads of food on offer.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yes, yes,
Hakuna Matata for me is one of my favorites since
yes.
they had their menu change last year.
Yeah,
In fact, I don't think you need a table service restaurant in
yeah,
Disneyland Paris. You can if you're going for,
yeah,
if you just want a nice meal, go for it. But especially if you're
yeah.
going for 2, 3 days, don't feel like you have to. Like, don't feel like you're going to be missing out if you don't have a table service
Yeah,
restaurant because there's so many other things
100%.
you can do. And, the quick services as well, some of them are really good and have really nice theming too. Like Hakuna Matata is a good example because the theming is also good. So
Yes,
is the
so
food.
good.
Yeah.
I
And they have
really love
quite a few.
Toad Hall as well, and the
Yeah,
food
I
there
know
is
you
good, and
enjoy
the
that one. Yeah.
theming is so cute inside.
It's so fun. I love that building. I don't eat there often because,
Yeah,
well, it's like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like fish and chips is the
yeah,
only thing, which is so crazy of me to like complain about this because as a vegan, in most places you only have one option.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
I like to go to places where I have a few options.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like with Toad Hall, it's just fish and chips or the vegan
100%.
fish and chips. And so
Yeah.
I really have to be in the mood for fish and chips to go there. So I don't tend to go there as often as maybe some other quick services where I can at least have 3 options to choose from.
Yeah, exactly.
But whenever I have been there, it's been great. Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like very lucky that I don't have to have like, you know, well done to people with dietary requirements or, you know, choices that they've made that, you know, have just gotten used to this lifestyle.
Yes, but I think that's the thing that's great is since 2021 they've added so many options, which is good. And I think it's difficult because, like I say, in the UK now it's so easy, and most restaurants you'll have multiple options. It's so easy to forget that other countries they aren't the same. So like if you have one option, like I remember previous to it was just like you had a pre-packaged salad that was just dry or like fries. Sometimes they were in a shared fryer, so
it was really
contamination is an issue. But so
even
now,
vegetarian stuff was awful and hard to find, quick service especially.
Exactly.
So I'm glad. And it's something that, because we've talked about this before, like France is very much not a vegan country. Generally, there's not a lot of people that are vegan in France. I'm sure there is a community of them, but clearly not as many as in the UK or in Germany or other parts of the world. And so I'm glad, it's good that they're doing this because it helps, you know, make it more like accessible and easy for people to enjoy that are not French, you know, 100%. More people can come and visit. And that's what Disney probably wants. I'm sure that's what they want. So it's good.
Yeah, and so many people that contact me about it, it's stuff like their children maybe have dairy allergies or things like that. So even people, you know, that can't have dairy for whatever reason, they now know there are options that we can have. So it's so nice because
if it's vegan, it will definitely not have any dairy.
Yes, exactly. So it just makes your life so much. And I actually think now there's enough vegan options that if you're going for like even a 4 or 5 day trip, there's enough good options.
Oh, that's good. You
could cover all your dining and be absolutely fine.
That's good.
Which is so good. And there's also options without fake meat, because I know some people don't like the fake meat option. So it's nice that there's actually options that don't have that in. But there are, if you like that, you've got that option.
Yeah, like the chakalaka in Hakuna Matata, that's no meat, that's no fake meat. That's just like
so good, so tasty. But like you said, I think that's a great quick service restaurant, and the theming is amazing.
And I never used to like it before the menu change that they had last year. I used to find it extremely boring because they used to just do chicken nuggets and like some kind of kebab wrap, and it was fine. But I was like, why? I never went out of my way just to go to that restaurant just for those chicken nuggets that I could probably get anywhere else in Disneyland as well. But the menu change definitely stepped it up a bit. They're doing a lot better because they changed the menu at Last Chance Cafe as well, and I think there's going to be another menu change coming to Colonel Hattie's soon, which is something that I've been wanting for years. Like I don't understand why Colonel Hattie's sells pizza. It's in Adventureland. Why does it have to have the same menu as the other one, Bella Notte? It has always annoyed me to the point where I don't ever eat there because I want to make a stand.
Exactly.
If I want pizza, I'll just go to Bella Notte. Exactly. I'm not going to go to Adventureland for pizza. It doesn't make sense to me. And I think they're going to be changing that to like something that makes more sense for Adventureland. So that'll be
so exciting.
Hopefully they'll bring a vegan option as well.
But that's the one downside with Last Chance Cafe. They took away the iconic vegan chili.
They took the vegan chili that I love.
Yes, and that's the thing. It was popular with everyone. But I don't think there's any replacement, at least on the menu. I don't know if I went and actually checked the allergen menu, but on the menu themselves, there's no vegan options now. And I'm like, don't take them away.
Oh, that's bad.
So hopefully, like you say, Colonel Hattie, they'll go, okay, we'll give you something here. That'll be perfect. But something I really like about Disneyland Paris is kind of how they have these secret walkways, and I think they are great because if you don't know about them, you know, you're just walking on the main walkways, can be quite busy. It's raining, you're outside, but they've built the park with all these secret walkways to cover you from the rain, and they're just so quiet, and they're great ways to get around the park. And I always think that's such a top tip, because especially if you're arriving and it's like parade time or something like that, there's no way you can fight your way down Main Street, but you've got the arcades. And the great thing with the arcades is all of the shops and like cafes on Main Street have an entrance, so you can go in that way as well. They've got toilets, they've got everything you need, so you can easily.
I love the arcades. I spend so much of my time there.
They're so pretty, aren't they? They're so nice as well.
They are.
They have seats,
and I like that you can always rely on them. Yeah. Sometimes I've
100%.
seen the arcades get extremely busy as well,
Yeah,
but even then, it's still going to be less busy than Main Street.
a hundred percent
At
that.
any time of the day, the arcades will be less busy than Main Street USA.
100% that. And I
Unless it's
really
just
like,
raining so badly, yeah.
yeah, and then everyone's like getting in
That
the
then
arcade.
everyone, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
then the really secret ones are the ones that are from like Casey's Corner into Frontierland. Love walking
Yeah,
down
I
that
love
little
those.
pathway. You've
Yeah.
got one that goes from like the entrance of Frontierland along to Adventureland. You've got like
Mm-hmm.
Adventureland, Fantasyland. Like there's all these
Yeah,
little hidden walkways that if you find them, it makes
yeah,
your life so much quicker, so much easier. And particularly if it's raining and you're like, I'm staying out for the
yeah.
rain, I'm
Oh
nice and
my God, yeah,
dry. Like it's lovely.
yeah,
But I think that's something Disneyland Paris have done really well. They've kind of taken into account the different weathers.
for sure. Yeah, they
Yeah,
needed to, I guess, and I'm
yes,
glad they've like, you know, I don't know where we'd be without the arcades, really.
yes, yeah. No, it's so true. And like even the fact that most of the queues are indoors and
Hmm.
stuff like that because they're like, we're not gonna make you stand in the rain for 40 minutes. Although like something like Peter
Yeah.
Pan, I know they have started adding like umbrellas, but that's
Uh-huh.
one queue that's always really long and it's mostly outside. So
Yeah. Peter Pan. Peter
yeah,
Pan is just I
yeah.
why is Peter Pan so like
I
I like the
don't know.
film, but the
Yes,
fact that Peter Pan, and I think in every Disney theme park has become like one of the most popular rides.
it's wild.
And
It's
they have similar attractions like Snow White and the other one,
yes,
Pinocchio. They're
yeah,
very much similar dark rides. I guess people just want to fly. I don't know.
yes. It's so
They want the
it's,
feeling of flying over London.
yeah, and like you say, it's so
It's so
cute. It's
weird.
very, very short as well. So like you queue for a really long time, and
Yeah.
then it's like a minute, and you're like, oh, that was it. It's gone. It's gone. It's such
Do
a
you know,
short.
even as a child, I never cared for it.
Yes, yeah,
I was more of an It's a Small World kind of person. I liked
yeah,
the longer thing. I just, I don't have
yes,
any vivid memories of Peter Pan because I guess maybe even if we went on it, it just might have happened so quickly that I forgot.
yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
It's so true. It's so,
You
but
know?
like you say, it's a small world. It's a Disney classic. It's long, and I love the messaging as well. That like, especially it feels
Yeah.
really appropriate in France, where like you say, there's so many different languages spoken, and it's like
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
all like a world community and a small. It's friendship to
It is
everyone and all of
cute.
that, and I'm like, it's so sweet. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it
and
is. It's lovely.
like you say, the Disneyland Paris version is stunning, especially since they've done the kind of update. It looks
Hmm.
amazing,
No,
so
I agree.
pretty.
I agree. It's
Yeah,
a beautiful ride, and like
yes,
I think the speed is pretty good as well. I find the one in Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom so slow that like
yeah,
you're gonna I'm just gonna fall asleep by the
yeah,
end of it. It feels
yeah,
very slow compared to Paris's,
yeah,
and Paris isn't fast. It's just at a very nice pace, so you don't
yes,
feel like you're going too slow or so fast that you can't see anything. Peter
yes,
Pan is a very fast attraction. By the time you'd see
yeah.
Captain Hook, you're in the next scene.
Yeah, no, that's
You're
so
like,
true.
okay,
It's
cool,
so
saw that.
true. And that's the
Yeah.
thing that at Disneyland Paris now, you've obviously got Premier Access. And what I kind of like is that they've got both options. So you can pay for one ride. And that's what I've done sometimes. Like you say, with Big Thunder, if you don't get extra magic hours
Mm-hmm.
and you're desperate to go on it, I have paid to do that before because I'm like, it's my favorite ride there.
Sure.
But you've also got
Yeah.
the ultimate option, which is very pricey, but it does include all of the rides
Mm-hmm.
with Premier Access. And I would say if you're visiting for like a
One
day,
time only though.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like you're like, this is my only trip, you might want to do that. But if you, like you say, if you've got a longer trip, even if it's just 3 days, I think you wouldn't need Premier Access Ultimate. I think you would fit
Yeah.
everything in.
For sure. With the ultimate one, I believe it's only you pay it and you can only go on each ride once. I've never used it,
Yes.
but I believe that's the case,
Yes.
which I think kind of takes the value away from it. Whilst it could be
Yeah.
good, I still think because there are only really a few rides that require it.
Yes. And it was very
So I would personally
interesting.
never,
Yeah, when I
advise
was
for anyone to
there
get it.
in March, there were lots of big rides shut. So Crush was shut, Big Thunder was shut.
Mm.
There were quite a few big rides that were closed. And I was
Right,
speaking to
right,
some
right.
American people, and they were on holiday visiting Paris, but they came to Disneyland
Mm-hmm.
Paris for the day, and they bought Ultimate because
Yeah,
they want to
fair
get on.
enough. Yeah,
And they said they
and
went.
that makes sense if you only have one day. Go for it.
But
Yeah,
the thing that was bad is they said the rides we bought it for are Big Thunder and Crush, and I was like, oh no, and I was like, actually, unfortunately, they're both closed for refurbishment. But it's
yeah, that's
interesting.
such
I
a
don't
shame.
know.
I wonder if like they could have like if
Price.
they'd spoken to the cast member, if they could have.
That's
I don't
exactly what I
know.
was
I don't
thinking
know.
because I
I've
was like, if
never
you've paid
been
for
in
the
that
13
situation.
rides, I don't know if they would
Yeah,
then go, maybe because those two are shut, you get like free, like open passes.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
seems wild otherwise if they're like, just pay that amount and you can't go on it? So I was like, it would have been interesting to find out at the end of the day, like done a survey with them, like, what happened with the ultimate? But
No,
like you said, I think
tricky one.
unless you're there for just one day only and it's your only trip, you don't necessarily need ultimate. Maybe if there's one ride that you're desperate to go on, you could do just the Premier Access. And like last time we tried,
for me, I would say Crush's coaster. If you love Crush,
yes,
no matter what time of the day you try and do Crush, and the best time, in my opinion, is evening time. Some people say go magic hour. But for me, I think in the evening the queue's normally a little bit shorter, just before the park is closing. But even then, you're still going to be waiting. So if you just want to not wait at all, then it could be worth it for Crush.
100%. I totally
it's the one
agree with
ride that I'd be like, yes.
And normally I would say if there's a ride that you really, really want to do, and like obviously you're adults or like the kids and there's there's a single rider queue and there's only a couple of you.
Oh yeah,
that could be a good option. But even the single rider for Crush gets so long that I 100% agree that Premier Access could be a good option for that.
Single rider for Crush makes no sense, honestly. No, I just have never understood it. I always just laugh at it. I'm like, okay, single rider's 80 minutes, regular standby is 100. What's the point of the single rider? Might as well just
that's the thing.
Add another 20 minutes.
If you don't know the fact that like each shell has like 4 seats and it's very rare, normally people are in 4s or 2s, so then it's very rare for a single rider to end up on the ride. And whereas something like Ratatouille, where it's rows of 3, you've got a much higher likelihood of being a single rider.
Absolutely.
But like Crush, like, but also I think that's one of those rides that it's a family coaster, but be prepared, guys, because it's not you're not this gentle little like I'm rolling around. That is one ride that I can't go on. It makes me so ill. I'm like, I can't go. It's so
I feel motion sickness as well when I go on it, so I don't tend to go on it often. I mean, I couldn't go anyway because it's always very long wait times. But the last time I went on it, I think was about a year or so ago, and I hadn't been on it for a while, and I was like, wow, this is a lot more intense than I remember it, and also I need like 5 minutes of recovery time after.
No, it's so true. I remember once I went with my friend and she went on the Tower of Terror and she hates the Tower of Terror, but she was like, I'll go on it for you. So then she was like, I really want to go on Crush, and I was like, okay, we'll go on Crush. And we went on it, there's 4 adults and it wasn't too bad. And then because it wasn't too bad, a couple of days later I was like, oh, maybe we can go on it again. And this time it was 3 adults and 1 child, and because the weight was then imbalanced,
spins,
the way it spun, I was like, I can't cope, and I was like, this was a massive error.
The spinning. I find it so interesting because I hate anything that spins. I'm happy. I'm okay with roller coasters. I can do like roller coasters that have loops. I can do Tower of Terror with absolutely no problem, and I love it. But spinning rides. But you love the teacups, whereas I hate. I can't do the teacups.
I can love the teacups, but can't do Crush.
And you actually do spin it as well, right? You don't like I've seen your vlogs. You spin it. You don't just sit there. If I go on the teacups, whoever I'm with has to just not spin it, so I can at least handle what.
Yes,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's so weird, isn't it? That's one reason why in Disney World I'm yet to go on Guardians, and it looks incredible. But the main triggers for motion sickness tend to be coasters in the dark, spinning, or screens, and they're like, just do all 3, and I'm like, I think I would.
They have all 3, oh god, I didn't even think of that. You're right.
I kept umming and ahhing about going on it, and then one day I was having a little sit down, and I happened to be near the first aid, and in 30 minutes 5 people were brought in because of that ride, and I thought, absolutely not. Nope, not for me.
Oh my god. Do you think you'll do it on your next trip?
I don't know, because that's the thing, because I think part of the problem is, so I not only do I have motion sickness, I have a phobia of being sick. So thought of going on something and then feeling ill, I would then get so stressed out because I'd be like, oh my god, this is the end of me. Like, I can't cope. And I think actually, but the fear of feeling motion sick, even before I get on a ride, I feel sick because I'm scared of feeling sick. So completely.
Could you go on it like on your last day or something? So at least if it happens, it doesn't ruin the rest of your whole, I don't know. Like,
I think you're so right. If you went on it in the evening and you're like, it's the final thing, and
you can just go back to your hotel.
And that's the thing. I think I like to watch ride point of view videos, and this is actually a good tip. If you do get motion sick or you're nervous of certain rides, watching YouTube videos where it's point of view so you can see what the ride's like, I think would be really helpful. But I also think sometimes not knowing, so like when I went to Disneyland in California, I didn't know much about the Indiana Jones ride. And I went on it and I didn't have time to be motion sick because I thought I was going to fall out. I was like a rag doll. It was like unbelievable.
It is like that. It's so funny though.
It's
like
so funny.
I love that ride.
But in some ways, I actually think it was better that I hadn't seen it because I didn't have to worry about feeling
you
motion.
didn't have to worry.
Thinking about the ride.
You're right. Yeah. Sometimes it might be better because you're just in there and it's going to be over with before you know it, and then you have to deal with the consequences. But at least you didn't have to have the build up of worry.
Exactly.
No, that's an interesting point.
Yes.
And I think Indiana Jones does like is a little bit more intense than I love Dinosaur, and I've definitely been on Dinosaur more times than I've been on Indiana Jones. Yeah. But I do find Indiana Jones a bit more like
that's
Dinosaur.
Really interesting. Actually, are they the same? Do you know? I always assumed they were the same ride, and I had actually avoided Dinosaur because people had said if you get motion sick, don't go on it. And now I'm like, oh, actually, I think I'm going to go on it this trip because
you've never been on Dinosaur.
No, because I've always avoided it because people are like, don't go on it.
Please go on it this September. I'm excited for you. I think you'll be fine.
I think it looks so
I think if you've done,
yes,
especially because it's probably going to go right. There's rumors that it might no longer exist.
If it shuts like the day before,
I'm sad. I love
it.
I really oh my god, because D23 they'll probably D23 is going to be so interesting this year. So many, hopefully. Let's hope. I mean, maybe it won't be interesting. Maybe it'll just be extremely boring and no one's going to announce anything. They'll just have some blueprints for us again. But I think we'll probably hear about Diamond and
exactly, and hopefully
Third Land at Disneyland Paris.
Yes, it'll be amazing to hear like maybe a date for Frozen Land, an estimated time. That would be incredible if we get some updates.
I think if I don't see us getting a date, but I do see us maybe getting a season.
Yes, that's true.
Which is what it was like for Tiana's. Yes. They said summer, and then eventually they gave us a date.
Exactly, that would be incredible. And I think that's the thing. Like, if you're visiting Disneyland Paris at the moment, or even in the next year or so, there is a lot of construction going on. And I have to say, I was shocked at the amount of walls, but. Like in the Studios Park, for example, apart from Aladdin's magic carpets being closed, everything else
is open. Everything is open. It just looks a bit annoying. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm like, if you know in advance, I think you can prepare. If you didn't know, you might be a bit shocked, but your actual experience of the rides isn't going to be impacted.
Yeah. And on my most recent trip, because there's now even more walls up in the studio since when you went in March, and it has made it a little bit difficult to get from one point to another because there are now so many that it is a maze, and you can see the building that you want to get to in front of you, but you're just not allowed to go. You can't go because there's a wall, so you have to go around the longer way. And I was like looking at guests who it was very obvious it was their first time, and honestly I didn't hear anybody, because sometimes the fact that I go solo, and I know you do a lot of solo trips as well, you sometimes overhear conversations, and I was overhearing conversations from English people, French people, and nobody seemed to really mind. They were just like, it was the first time in the park, and they were like, oh, this is the route, I guess, and okay, what should we do, like what's the ride, it didn't seem to affect them, which that's so I'm not saying it doesn't affect everyone, but at least the general vibe seemed that people were just happy and they were just excited to experience the rides that they did have there, which is great. But still, it is a shame that you're paying the same amount of money for a slightly reduced experience because of the beauty of the park not really being fully there right now.
But I think it's the thing, isn't it? Like the plans that we've seen so far, it looks like it's going to be amazing when it is all finished. And I just think a lot of people have been contacting me that are coming from the US, and I was like, I would wait until 2026 just because if you're coming from that far away and it's your once in a lifetime trip, you want to be able to also experience like the new land, stuff like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But, like if you are from the UK and you know that you're probably going to visit more than once in your life, I don't think you say it's going to have it's not going to really be detrimental.
Exactly. But if it's a long way away from you, then wait.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Well, I've turned up like a little news reporter and I've got a little list. But I think we've actually covered a lot of things because we've covered extra magic hours, which is amazing. We've covered the dining reservations. So something I would say is if you're staying at a Disneyland Paris hotel, you can actually book your dining reservations up to a year in advance, which is incredible. It does sound insane to kind of know where you're going to eat a year before you turn up, but like the most popular restaurants will sell out quickly. But I would say, and I don't know if you've experienced this, on the app, not all of the dining reservations open up at the same time. So something like Disney
No, they
World,
don't. To always keep checking. Like if you're
yes,
ever bored
a
about to
million
watch a film,
percent.
just quickly go on the app and see if
Yeah,
you might see something new,
it's
because they
so
might just
true.
randomly pop up.
That's the
Yeah.
thing, because they say like in
Um.
12 months in advance, or like if you're staying off-site, I think it's 2 months in advance. But again, not all of the restaurants will
Mhm.
open up on that time frame. So like you say, just keep popping back, and eventually wherever you want will pop up.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
you're
true.
that is such a good benefit of staying on site, because I very rarely stay on site.
Yeah.
And the few times that, like, whenever I do have like an on site stay, suddenly for those particular days that I'm staying on site, I can see so many options. And as somebody who just has an annual pass for the most part, when I go to any other days, I'm like, nothing available. And for those 3 days that I'm staying on site, there's availability for almost everything. And I get so jealous of, I
Yes.
mean, as in, like, because if you don't stay on site, you really, it's hard, it's a lot harder to get
Yeah,
reservations.
that's so true.
Not so much if you're a solo traveler, you can still manage, but
Yeah.
if you're a big family, there is definitely
Yes.
a clear benefit of staying on site.
No, that's so true. And I think what is good is if you do stay off site, there are so many hotels close by that you have variety, because you've got like that strip of hotels where you've got the shuttle buses. Of course, you've got
Mm-hmm.
one stop on a train, and then you've got so many
Yeah.
hotels. And I think that's really nice with Disneyland Paris, is that if you
Mm-hmm.
don't stay on site, there's
Absolutely, yeah,
still loads of hotels really close by. And it's one
for
of those
sure.
things
So
that
many options.
yeah. And like you have to, I think the only thing, if you've never been before, is that if you stay at Disneyland Paris Hotel, your tickets are included in part of your package. Whereas if you stay off
Mm,
site, you have to add the ticket price on top. So sometimes it's not a
yeah.
big difference, but sometimes, one will work out cheaper than the other. And if you're an annual pass holder, staying off site makes so much sense.
Makes so much more sense. So, like, this is why
Yeah.
since I've had my annual pass, and it's been almost a decade. I think 2015 was when
Yes.
I got my first annual pass.
That's
I've
amazing.
almost always stayed off site. I might have 1 or 2 trips per year where I might
Yeah.
stay 1 or 2 nights in a Disney hotel. But
Yeah.
when I didn't have an annual pass, I don't think I ever stayed off site, and I don't think it makes sense. Sometimes it can, if you manage to somehow, as you said, get tickets,
Yeah.
at a decent, reasonable price. But sometimes the price of tickets can make the cost even more than
Yes.
if you just stayed in a, booked a Disney package.
Yes.
It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, because when they add the tickets to the Disney package, the tickets are so cheap. Like I worked out before, like I looked at like a room only rate for Disneyland Paris Hotel
Mm-hmm.
and including the
Right.
tickets, and it was £30 more, and that was for like a 3-day trip.
Wow.
And they work
Wow.
out so
Yeah.
cheap that, like you say, sometimes when you initially look, you'll see offsite hotels are much, much cheaper. But once you add the ticket cost, sometimes, like you say, it's not
Yeah.
really much difference. And I
No.
would also say, if you're going to stay at Disneyland Paris Hotel, always look at all of the hotels, because what happens is, depending on how many people have already booked that hotel, sometimes the value resorts can be more expensive than like the Sequoia
Oh,
Lodge
for
or even the
sure. Yeah.
Newport, which
Yeah.
is wild.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely
I know.
worthwhile checking all the prices out.
Yeah, all of
So
them.
it's
Hmm.
so
For sure. And
perfect.
there's also the option where, like, if you've got flexible dates, sometimes you can see, like, if you just were to go a little bit
Yes.
earlier, how
Yeah.
much cheaper it could be, or if you went a couple of days later, which
Yes,
I also like.
exactly. Yeah, it's really nice that you get to see the whole variety of like, and even like
Hmm.
on the page at the bottom, if you scroll down, you can look like a month-long calendar, and then it highlights in different colors, like, oh, these days of the week are
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah,
expensive, which
yeah,
is
yeah. What
so
dates are like?
good.
So,
Yes.
like, Disneyland Hotel, which is extremely expensive.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be if you really want to stay there. If you go in January, I went in January.
Yes. Yeah.
In January, it's still expensive, but it's like you can get it for as low as £500 a night,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
still expensive,
Exactly.
but it's not £1,000 a night.
No, exactly. It's
So
so much
there
more
are ways.
affordable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's something.
Even things that are even really expensive hotels, if you really want to experience them, you
Yeah.
can just make sure you play around with dates
Yeah,
and see
exactly
when you
that.
can get them cheaper. Yeah.
And I always recommend, if you can travel outside of school holidays.
Which I know not everyone gets to.
Yes,
So
exactly, which
shout
is
out to
such a
people that are
shame. Yeah,
not, yeah,
it's just
able
the
to.
worst when you're tied down, and of course the prices shoot
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
But if you have the
yeah.
ability, if you can travel between like November and March and avoid obviously Christmas and New Year, you can get
Hmm. Hmm.
fantastic deals. So I booked
Yeah.
in January. I'm going with my best friend. We went together 10 years ago. She hasn't been back since, so we're gonna go back.
Oh,
It's gonna be lovely.
cute.
But
Oh,
like
so many new things for her, actually.
yeah, that's the thing. I was like, that's gonna be so
That's
fun because, like
nice
you say,
because
there's so
Disneyland Paris
many
doesn't
new
have a lot of
things.
new rides, but for her, it would,
Yes.
yeah.
It's going to be wild. But we are staying for 3 nights, 4 days, and Newport Bay was only £380 per person. with your park tickets
Oh
included. So you can
wow,
get
that's
really good
amazing. Yeah,
deals if you do check, like you say, if you play
perfect.
around with the dates. It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be a like a completely unaffordable trip. You can get really
yeah,
good deals still,
you can find ways.
which is
And
fantastic.
Disneyland Paris, from my experience anyway,
Yeah.
I think it's the only Disney park that has your tickets just included if you book a package.
Yes.
Every
Yeah.
other Disney theme park, you have to add them on, and then you're like, why is my holiday becoming so much more expensive suddenly?
Exactly.
Because
It's so
if
true, isn't
you're
it?
used to Disneyland Paris's way of doing things with
Yeah.
with the tickets included, oh
Yes.
my god, California is a whole other like expensive
It's so
thing. Like
true.
it's the most expensive to me. I think it's the most expensive. I'm going hopefully later this year to Disneyland California, and my
Amazing.
friend and I were on the process of booking it. We were both
Yes.
like, why? We do so many
Yes.
Disneyland Paris trips. I mean, I've been to Asia. None of them have been quite as expensive as this trip that we're about
Yes.
to do.
That's so
It's
interesting.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yes. And I
Although
think,
there are options in California as well if you stay off site, but it's just
yeah.
like, and we are staying off site, but
Yeah.
even then the ticket price is so expensive that it feels, and then Genie Plus is added because you want
Yeah.
the photo pass.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, that is so true. It's so true. And I think there's something that's also great for Disneyland Paris if you're a solo traveler is there is a solo supplement, but it's not very
Mm-hmm.
much. Whereas something like any
Mm-hmm.
of the American parks, the room
Yeah.
rate is the same regardless of how many people are in it. So
How many
when I
people?
go to
Yeah.
Disney World, it's unbelievably expensive on a solo trip
Expensive.
because
Yeah.
if I was to share with one person, immediately it would halve the cost.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Whereas Disneyland Paris is much more affordable for solo travelers, and that's
And
like
in that
even
regard,
off-site as
Japan is
well.
great. Yeah,
Yes,
Japan
yes.
is literally based on person, like
Oh, that's
not
amazing.
literally, like
Yes, that's
which is
so
cool.
good. I also
Yeah.
loved in Japan. I saw years ago a vlog of there were two couples that had gone together and they were like,
Mm-hmm.
let's share a room. So it's like the most affordable
Mm-hmm.
because they wanted to stay on site at
Mm-hmm.
Disney. But what I loved is even though there were two couples, they had four single beds like the Seven Dwarfs, and it was so
Yeah.
cute. I absolutely loved
Yeah,
it.
I
It's so,
tasted like the seven dwarfs, and
yeah.
now I'm imagining it, and it's so true. It is true. Like I know what kind of beds you're talking. Like I've seen the rooms, and
Yeah.
yeah, the majority of the hotels just have single beds, but like you can
Yes.
get ones that have four single beds in
Yeah.
them, which is something that is almost unheard of in Western
Yes.
hotels. It's very difficult to find a
Yeah.
room. You might be able to get a suite or connecting rooms, but Japan does make travel a lot
Yes.
easier, whether you're
Yeah.
solo or with a big family. You just
That's
will have enough beds
perfect.
in your
Yeah,
room at a decent
exactly.
price.
Which is so good. And like, and
It
I love
is.
if you were like four friends, you would know, okay, we can all have our own bed, we're not sharing. It's
Yeah.
great. It's so
Yeah.
fun. If you've got a grumpy friend and they don't want to sleep with the sleepy friend, you can have your
I love
individual
that.
beds.
They
It's
should
so
so
cute.
do. Japan needs to do a Snow White themed
Oh my
hotel
gosh,
and
that would be
literally do that,
so
like rooms with
cute.
seven
Yes,
beds.
that would be so
And it would go
good.
well. I think
Yes,
it would go down
exactly.
well.
It would be so fun. But yeah,
You should get
Japan
credit for
looks
it though,
next
because I feel like
level.
you're the one that brought it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly. But yeah, Japan is like the dream. It looks literally the best. And like I was obsessed with your vlog series because I think it's one of those
Oh,
parks that
thank
everyone
you.
wants to go to, but they kind of don't know about like how do you go about going. And it was so handy to get all the tips and advice just to see the experience. And it just looks a dream.
Yeah.
It's so
Oh
good.
yeah, I love Japan, and it is a difficult one.
Yeah,
It's the most difficult of all the Disney parks,
yeah,
not to enjoy, but to actually book and plan.
yeah,
Hong Kong Disneyland, Shanghai Disneyland, their websites are a lot more easy to navigate.
yeah,
Japan's is a whole. I on a daily basis since I went to Japan, I get questions now like of
yeah.
my lovely viewers saying like, "Oh, we're trying to book, we don't understand the website." I'm like, "Don't worry, I didn't either, and I still don't. But let me try and find some ways to help you because their website isn't the most.
Right.
It's just different. It's a
Yeah.
different. I don't know if you've been on their website. It's very. It's just it's
Yes.
different the way
Yeah.
everything works, and they've got the vacation packages, whereas all the other Disney parks, I feel like seem a little bit more similar. The other
Yes.
how many other 4 or 5 anyway
Yes. Yeah.
Japan seems to be just very different suddenly everything,
Yes.
but in many ways that's a good thing because the fact that they are different and owned by a different company with Oriental, like it just makes that the best
Yes.
Disney theme park in the world.
Yeah. No, it's so true.
But
Isn't
also
it?
different. Yeah.
Yes, and I like that you really do get this is something I really like about the Disney parks in general is that even though there'll be similar rides or like Main Street looks similar, all of the parks still have their unique take, which I think makes them
Yeah.
all worthwhile to visit because the one thing that is difficult is now there is a lot of, the Avengers campus is exactly the same in California and Disneyland, Paris, and
Mm-hmm.
they do Galaxy's Edge, it's the same on both coasts, and it is a shame that
Yeah.
some like kind of generic things going on, whereas I'm like, oh, I love it when you have like the only place in the world
something
that
unique.
I can do this is this. Yes, exactly.
Which is why I'm glad that Disneyland Paris decided to scrap the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge thing, which I know so many people are sad about.
Yeah.
You know, something new would be better. And Ratatouille, I was so, as much as I'm happy for Epcot, I was a bit like, why? Why are you taking something from Paris and putting it somewhere that has so many other things already? Like, leave that to be unique to Paris.
Yes, exactly. And it fits so well in Paris, obviously. It's just so cute there. But like you said,
but it works well in Epcot too.
Yeah, exactly. And with Galaxy's Edge being so expensive, like, and it's just like, I don't think it would be possible, because I think Rise of the Resistance, just as a ride, cost $500 million on its own.
Oh, wow.
And then it's like, if you're putting that much investment into like just one land, it's a lot. Whereas you could put that amount of investment into multiple lands in Disneyland Paris, or just like they're doing
something new,
improvements. And yes, exactly.
Yeah, and especially if you want people from the US to visit, give them some, like, they already have Galaxy's Edge in 2 different parks there, you know, different coasts, so they don't. There'll be. I think if what we think will be the next land, everyone's going to be really happy. The majority of people, is it going to be something that everyone is going to want to experience?
Yes, so
I'm excited.
But that's there's so many exciting things coming up. And I did a podcast where we were talking about like kind of the future, if you're visiting in the next couple of years, what to expect at all the different parks around the world. And what's interesting is a lot of them have been having a lot of renovation on new lands, and at the moment they're all kind of coming to the end. So if you visit them, like, you know, in Japan, obviously you've got Fantasy Springs about to open, which looks amazing. Epcot is, I think, the Asian parks. Yes.
I think, to be fair, Paris is probably now the one that's like really doing the most right now in terms of renovations.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like, there'll be a little lag. Like, it will take a little while for those to be done. But then there's been so many new things coming. It's going to be really exciting.
For sure.
It should be so good.
But Disney Adventure World.
Yes, it's definitely a name.
We love the name.
It's so interesting.
I actually don't mind it. I don't like it when people call it Adventure World, because that makes it weirder. Just, and if you put Disney at the beginning, it's a bit less weird. It's a bit more Disney.
No, that's true.
Because there's Disney in it.
And I think that's the thing. I think once we get used to it, it will be okay. But I think the thing is you've obviously got Adventureland in the other park, and then this is Adventure World, and then I think the world, we all know at the moment, for people that don't really go to Disney, like, it's Disneyland Florida, like, they already confuse all the names. Worry how many people are going to think it's going to be like Disney World, and I'm like, it's not.
And it's not. Ironically, it's one of the smallest Disney parks, at least right now. The adventure part, I don't think is a problem personally, because they've got Disney California Adventure and Adventureland there. Nobody seems to mind.
That's true.
So I don't think that's going to be a big thing. But I do think the world maybe, but they've already done like Worlds of Pixar, and it's such a, like, I think I don't know. I can't. Can you think of a better name? Because I have thought so hard. Go on, give me a better name for it.
But it's hard. But what's actually quite funny,
I really tried.
I saw a lot of Americans, and their initial reaction wasn't the name, but they were like the order, and they said it should be called Disney World Adventure. And I'm like, Chesington would like to have an argument with you about that. I think that would have been a better name, but obviously it would be so similar that they just couldn't do that.
It would also be extremely confusing. Then that would be confusing with Disney World of Adventure, Disney World.
Yes.
I think they must have. That's 100% why they didn't do that. Because it would make more sense to say Disney World of Adventure. I don't think they care too much about Chesington, even though it's true. Like, that's. But I think the main thing would have been the Disney World thing. The Disney and the world being together just wouldn't work. Personally. But it's hard. Like, but then we don't get paid to come up with names. So maybe they, if they're getting paid, they should have come up with something better. But at the same time, I've thought so hard. I've had my friends think. We've come up with things, and we just kind of, none of them seem very good.
And
it's
so
hard to
difficult.
put a name to something that already exists. And there are only so many words that can describe a place. So we've got land, we've got world. California's Disney Adventure, DCA. So Adventure's now trying to describe the place.
That's so true.
What else can you do, really? And I was talking to a friend. I was like, really? Well done to Epcot. Well done to Walt Disney for coming up with the word Epcot, or whatever the full thing is, because it's the most unique name. Every other Disney park, when you think about it, is like a land or a world or Disney Sea. Even is still like a thing, a place. So what else can you do?
Yeah,
My friend was
that's
like, maybe
very
like Disney
true.
Adventure Realms. I'm like, no, realm, like it's a beautiful
Yeah.
word, but the child is not going to be like, I'm going to Disney Adventure Realm,
Yeah,
like, or like,
that's
you know, so
true.
like we
Yes.
can't get too poetic with theme
Yeah, no,
park
that's such a
names.
good point. But yeah, like you say, it
It's
must be
hard.
so difficult. And like when you actually think about it, you make such a good point about like in California they
Mm.
already have it and it's not an issue. And like Fantasy Springs, I'm like, that's such a cute name. But I'm like, we have Disney Springs and Fantasyland. So it is kind of like key
Yeah,
words that they kind of love.
that
It's great
have to play
descriptors for
around with.
Disney.
Yeah,
And it's like, what
yeah,
combinations can we use? That's such
yeah.
a good point. That is such a good
I
point.
think it would have been cool maybe if they just put something French in it.
Yes. Oh, that would
Personally,
be
even if
amazing.
they put Disney Adventure Monde, which is the French word for world,
Yes.
but then they want people to be able to say it. World is an easier
Right.
name word for everyone to say
Yes.
than Monde.
Yeah.
Um,
But that would have
but
been
I also my only
great.
main like the thing that annoys me the most is the word world. But I'm coming round. I don't mind it
Yes.
too much now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we'll all get used to it, won't we? And it's because we'll be like, okay,
Yeah,
well, we've
yeah.
got around to
We're
that.
going to Disney Adventure World.
Yeah, exactly that. But have a little look to
Yeah,
see if
because
there's
Disney
any
Adventure Studios wouldn't have worked either. Yeah.
no.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
just really thinking
yes.
because it's not really a
Yeah.
studio anymore. So
And I think that's the thing,
what could
isn't it? Like, because the original concept of that park has changed quite a lot. You can see why they're moving away from
hmm.
studio. It's like Hollywood
Yeah.
Studios when they moved away from MGM, and like it's not like a massive
Mm.
shift in name, but because the direction of the park
Do you know what
changed.
though?
Yeah.
I I think Disney Adventure World could easily also be the name of Hollywood Studios because that
Yes.
as much as I love Hollywood Studios and I think it's a better park than Walt Disney Studios Park right now,
Yeah.
it's also a park with just a lot of IPs that doesn't necessarily all come together very well. It's
100%.
very similar to Walt Disney
Yes.
Studios,
Yeah.
but better
You're
just because the vibe
100%
feels nicer there.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So that
like
could
you say,
also be the name.
they both started out as like movie making, and
Yeah,
neither of
and
them
they've
are
kind
like
of
that
gone
now.
away,
So, because I did
and they all have lands.
yeah, I did see that last year Disney World was sending out emails to people, like surveys.
Okay.
I think I
Hmm.
even got one. And it was like,
Okay.
oh, if we change the name of Hollywood Studios, like which of these would you, and none of them were good. None of the
Ooh.
options were good.
Okay.
But they were like
That's good. At
testing
least
the
they gave you
water.
some like options. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Instead of
But I
just
love they were like, oh no,
saying
we don't
Disney
know.
Adventure World.
Yeah, exactly. But like you say, it
It
is
would
so
be weird if
hard
they
to
do
name a
try to
park.
change it.
Yeah,
It
exactly. Like
is,
you're seeing
especially a Disney
everything.
park, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you do, as
exactly.
you said, you need those like key magical words. The Disney obviously has to be there,
Yes.
something like fantasy, magic, you know.
Yep, exactly
It's
that.
hard.
Because yeah, otherwise people just don't know what's happening. So it does make sense. Like
I
you said,
really
when
hope
you
in our
say it, you know what you're getting.
yeah, I hope in our
Yes.
lifetime we get to see the opening of one more Disney theme park.
Yes,
Like if
that would
if
be
Disney World ever gets another park,
amazing.
because more than anything, I want to see what name they give it. You know, if they're building
Yes.
a park from scratch, what name can they give it?
Yes. Oh, that'd be
That would be
so
really cool to
interesting. I
see.
wonder where they would build it.
Yeah.
Because it would, like you say, it needs to be somewhere that's like
True.
got good transportation links. Obviously,
Mm,
people can easily get there. But it would be, yeah, it'd be so
mm.
interesting to see where would they build. And it would,
I
yeah.
know.
And it's
But also,
interesting
even
because
if it's just another park in Disney World, I think even
yes,
that could be cool.
yes.
You
Oh my
know,
gosh, yeah. And that's the thing,
I
like
think
Disney
probably that's
World
more
has so
likely.
much land. And I know when I did the
Yeah.
Kings of the Kingdom tour, they said that the land that they currently have at Disney World, only a third of it they've built on. A third
Oh
of it will
wow.
always be conservation.
Wow.
But basically, they could build another four parks, two
Mm,
water parks, 30 hotels,
wow.
400 restaurants. They
Yeah.
could do it all over again. So I'm like, oh my
The
gosh,
whole thing again. Yeah, that's
could
so
you
crazy to think.
imagine? It's wild. So that, like you said, if you could get another park, that would be epic. And I know there's always talk about I think there's space for it's either two or three more pavilions in Epcot. So people are always like which
Mm.
countries would be represented. And I think that's
Oh,
a
I
really
would so
exciting
love
idea.
that.
That would be
Yeah.
so cool, right? Because there's so
Yeah, for
many
sure.
amazing countries that like the architecture and the food and everything would fit in so well.
Do you know when the last pavilion would have been? Like, did they all kind of? My Disney World knowledge is not very
No.
limited. Did
So
they kind of all come about at the same time?
I
No,
just assumed
they
they
must have
all
kind of
came at the
added.
same time, but I don't know if
That's
they
what I
have
have
actually
always thought as
added
well.
some. But because maybe
No.
they did. Like I know that some of the things
Yeah.
changed. So like Germany was meant to have a water ride and they actually had it all set up. They
Oh,
had the
okay.
entrance. So like if you ever go to the Germany pavilion, you have the entrance to beer
Yeah.
garden and then next to it there's just like
Okay.
a load of space that you think is beer garden, but actually that
Oh,
was going to be the entrance to this water ride. And it was
oh
like
no. Do you know that's
down the
sad? It's
line.
always sad when projects just get scrapped.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that would have been fun. And
Oh.
like, so yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
amazing to see if they did expand. But the fact that we know Disneyland Paris is expanding and the fact that, like you said, because Galaxy's Edge was supposed to come and then it kind of got scrapped, we know that there's probably going to be another land coming in the future, and like you said, there's loads of rumors about what it might be, and I just think that's going to be great. So there's just loads going to be happening.
It's going to be great because it's more than likely it's going to be a land that's going to be only happening in Paris, which is what we want. We talk about how it'd be nice if it's unique, you know.
Yes, and like you say, it's a massive draw then for people to come, because the thing that I find amazing is obviously we're so used to like Brits and everyone coming and European people, but sometimes I've been here and I've met people from like South Africa, and they're like, Disneyland is the closest Disney park for them, and you kind of forget that that's so true. That there's so many people that Disneyland is still the closest park, which is it's still far away.
Even in Europe,
yes, exactly. So but it's definitely a magical destination. Like if you've never been to Disney and you're thinking about, you know, what would it be like, I definitely think Disneyland Paris is definitely a great place to go, because
for sure,
even if you're thinking about doing Disney World and stuff, it can be great, but it's such a long flight, it's such a big expense, and sometimes it's great, like, let's go and taste the Disney magic, and then when you inevitably become hooked, you can then start planning all your future trips.
and then you're like, wow, it's an expensive thing that and it's so far away that I want to get back to constantly. No, but it's hard to compare them. Like Disney World very much is like a holiday. You're like, I can't even. I love Disney World. The first few times I went, I was so overwhelmed by it that they did take me a while to kind of understand and enjoy the charm of it. I loved it, but I was like, whoa, I'm happy with Disneyland Paris. Just give me the small park. I'm okay with it. But it's a holiday. You feel like you're in a different world. Whereas 100%. In any of the other Disney parks, doesn't matter if it's California, in my opinion, or the Asian ones, or Paris, it's still it's two theme parks. So whilst you might be like immersed whilst you're in the park, when you come out, it's just not the same as really feeling like you're in a different world for like a week or 2 weeks, depending on how long you go to Disney World. So there is a feeling that you just can't get anywhere else. I understand. I love Disneyland Paris and I love all the Disney parks, but Disney World's particular feeling you really can't get anywhere else.
No, that's so true. And like you say, like something I do like is if you stay on site at Disneyland Paris, you do have that free transportation. Everything's within a 15-minute walk. So like when I go to Disneyland Paris, I literally don't leave the Disney kind of bubble. But like you say, it is different to Disney World. But the great option is, like, there is so many things close by, and even if you want to go shopping malls, or even if you want to go into Paris, it's so easy. Whereas Disney World, because it's so vast, it's expensive and takes a lot of time to come off and off site. So the great thing about Disney is you do have that variety of, if you don't want to stay on site, you also want to mix up and do other things, you've got that option.
Exactly.
Which is so good.
But I think Disney World is so cool. But Disneyland Paris, if you've never been to Disney, is the perfect option. Like I would always tell people, if you're thinking of going to Disney, in fact, especially if you live in the UK, and if you're not like this huge Disney person, and if you don't want to make a big commitment, absolutely go to Disneyland Paris first. If you've got young kids, like I never felt like I missed out by not going to Disney World as a child, because Disneyland Paris gave me all the magic I needed. And I think it's cheaper, it's easier, it's shorter normally, but you're not going to go for 2 weeks to Disneyland Paris. I mean, some people do, and amazing for them. But it's you still absolutely get the magic. It's just in Disney World, it's different, slightly more intense magic.
It's true. It's so true.
Not getting the other parks, but but you still have so much magical.
And I that's what I 100% agree with everything, and like you say, it just feels much more attainable because it's so much more affordable, and you don't have to be for such a long period of time, because this was one of those places that if you went for a week, you're really not going to get the most out of it. Whereas Disneyland Paris, if you go for like even 3 or 4 days, you're going to fit so much in. And it's just,
for sure,
it's amazing. And like you say, that feeling is, you definitely get the magical feeling.
Isn't it funny that you say Disney World, if you went for a week, you probably wouldn't get too much out of it, whereas any US person I've ever talked to tells me I'm ridiculous for going a week. They say, wow, 4 days is too much for Disney World. I think we think 4 days is a long time, and like people go from the UK for 3 weeks sometimes.
It's so
it's
true.
Funny. So I guess those people still can get something out of it, Disney World, even in 4 days.
It's
but just
so
clearly
true.
not as much as they could if they were
that's somewhere like Disneyland Paris. Like when I went to California, I ended up doing 6 days, and everyone said way too long, and obviously the maximum tickets they sell are 5 days. But like even the 6 days, there was still stuff I didn't do. but like you say, everyone you speak to, like you say, especially Americans, are like, that's insane. Like, do 2 days, and I'm like, no way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
So
Last
like,
time I went to Disneyland California, I did 5 days, and
yes.
in in the really scary swinging things, I was sat next to some
Oh
Americans,
my
and we
God.
ended up chatting
Yes.
because I told them I'm just gonna scream, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
warn you beforehand, and they were like, "Don't worry."
I love
And
that.
then they were asking me how long I'm there, and I was like, "Yes, I'm here for 5 days," and they were like, "Oh, like really? Like
Yes.
1, 2 days? Surely that's it? 5 days,
Yeah.
5 full days in Disney?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've
Yes.
come all the way from the UK,
No,
so
it's
I
so
need the five
true.
days."
It's so true.
Um, but I guess it also depends, like, because I think if you're vlogging and stuff, you will
Yeah.
automatically want more time because it takes time to
Yes.
vlog.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
taking time away from doing things by
Right.
filming.
Yes. No,
So you
that's
the
so
more
true.
time the better sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's the best. And yeah, it's just, yeah, anytime you can spend at Disney, like, I do think that's the thing. Like, no matter how many days you have, you will get something out of it. So if you're going on holiday to France and you're just going to do one day in Disneyland Paris, you're still going to have that
Yeah,
magical feeling. You're
for
still going to
sure.
get loads
Yeah.
out of it. Just probably pick what are your priorities and try and
Priorities
for
are, yeah.
them.
Hmm.
But like you say, I think
Yeah.
any amount of time is perfect. And yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
it can go too long. If you love Disney, there's never a too long. But I kind of my recent I used to always do 5 days, and my recent trips have been 3 or 4. And like I think four's
Hmm.
great because on the first day I used to get the super, super early flights and I would always get a migraine. So I've started getting like an afternoon flight. It's the first day's mostly travel, but you
To
maybe
have a
see the
good night's sleep and then
fireworks.
be rested for
Yes,
the next day.
exactly.
Yeah, for
And then
sure.
you get kind of like 3 days in the park, which is
Hmm.
perfect.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, or if you could just maybe like just book a cheaper hotel offsite the night before and then
Yes,
move to a Disney hotel, so you make the most of your tickets as well, which are included.
a hundred
Um,
percent that.
yeah.
Yes, I
So
stayed once
yeah,
at the B&B hotel, and I think it was £50 for the night. But my room had a double bed, a single bed, and a bunk bed, so 5 people could have slept in there. It's unbelievably
yeah,
easy.
yeah, it's
And like you
amazing.
say,
Yeah,
when you arrive, you just sleep
there
there
are
for
so
the
many
night.
good cheap.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure.
yeah. There's so much good value hotels nearby, so that's a really, really good option. Because like you say, if the first day you're not going to be using the ticket, you might not want to be spending money on a Disneyland Paris
Hmm.
hotel. So like that's
Yeah,
such a good option. And yeah, well, feel like we've covered a lot of things, and I could just talk about Disney all day. It's been very exciting.
I know. We can continue going.
I love it, exactly. But I hope it also had lots of tips and advice. And I think that's the thing, like
I hope
hearing
so.
from people that kind of are lucky enough to go frequently, that like you say, over time you just pick up things and you're like, oh, that's the way I do that, or
Hmm.
this kind of works best for me. And it's nice to just be able to pass on those tips and hope that some of
For
them
sure.
help other people out. But it's been a
Yeah,
wonderful time with you, Sam. So thank you
it's
so
been
much.
amazing. Thank
This is so
you. Thank
fun.
you.
Yeah, I could
I
just
had a
talk.
good time. A really
We could
nice
have like
day.
an 8 hour podcast. It'll be amazing.
We should do it. We're like one day we should
Yes.
do like a 20. I'm joking. Do
Yeah.
not a 24-hour live
Yeah.
like
Can you
podcast
imagine
or a live show or
a
something.
sponsored one?
Oh
Like we
my
do it for
god.
charity. We just go, 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 go,
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. Like for charity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'd be
Oh, maybe
amazing.
one day. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. It could be
We will have
amazing.
no voice by the end of it,
Yeah,
but
can you
we can
imagine?
try.
We'll just have to like imagine we are a fur character and use our body language.
Oh yeah, like do a lot of hand gestures.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be perfect. But yeah, thank you so much for
Oh,
taking the time. It's been absolutely
thank you.
wonderful. And until
Thank
next
you.
time,
I honestly
guys.
had a great time.
Yes, it's been the best. It's been
I
so
hope
much
you have
fun.
the most magical time.
Yeah, have the most magical day, guys. Bye bye. I love that.